really important. Yes?
Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with this story in the Bible, but it's when after Jesus was resurrected and he came back to earth, and one of his disciples were in the room, and one of them said, I'm not going to believe until I see your scars. Like, do you guys kind of believe like you don't believe until you see it? Is that kind of like what you're saying?
No, I think belief is something beyond that. It's not that alone. I wouldn't say you don't see it till you believe it, or believe it till you see it, but it's because belief is something that you can't always see. So I don't think Judaism assumes that. Okay, yeah, that's not a Jewish concept per se. There are a lot of people who say that, but it's not a Jewish concept per se. So, faith is something beyond, proving or scientific proof. Yeah.
So earlier you said in Judaism you do and then you listen.
Yeah.
Technically, isn't reading the Bible listening and then doing?
No. Studying Torah is a real do in Judaism. Torah lishma is a term in Judaism. It means studying Torah for its own sake. That's not listening. That is study is an active thing that we do all the time. And that's a central part of Judaism. So it isn't listening. It's studying. It's being active. It's arguing. It's asking questions. It's reading the other texts that are very complicated. We are the people of the book. We were given that name for a reason because we don't only have the Bible, but we also have Talmud, and then we have codes, and then we have responsa, and then we have midrash, and then we have so many texts that interpret all the other texts, and that's the way that we make sure that we're actively engaged in the study of Torah. Okay? Yeah.
Earlier you said that you were argumentative. Why are arguments so important?
Because you're engaged in something. Think about the fact that when you're angry at your parents and you just go, ugh, I'm done. You walk away. There's not an ability to get deeper into a relationship if you just walk away from conflict. Conflict is actually a good thing. Conflict helps you clarify what you believe and help you hear what somebody else believes. And so there is this real sense that in the struggle, in the argument, God lives, because those are the times that you're engaged with another human being. We're all created in God's image. So when you're involved in another human being, if you're, arguing is not hitting each other over the head. It's using your words, it's using your ideas. Think again. You guys are in high school now, or junior, it's high school, right? It's high school. So high school is a time where you start really talking to people and figuring out your ideas. And it's so exciting, isn't it? When you get into this conversation about something that's really important. And even if the person disagrees, I hope it's still energizing because it allows you to clarify. And it's interesting, and you're thinking, and you're feeling, and those are the ways that we experience God in Judaism, I think in any religion, in any tradition. So it's not that we always argue, but we're not afraid of arguing. It's part of what we do, and it's these interesting conversations. Yes?
What's your point on Jesus and being the Messiah?
Perfect, thank you. So what's my view on Jesus and the Messiah and all of that? So, Judaism believes that Jesus was a Jew. He was born a Jew. He lived as a Jew. He died as a Jew. And that we do not see that the Messiah has come yet. We're waiting for the Messiah because seeing is believing. There you go, one of those things, seeing is believing. The world is so torn up that we can't believe the Messiah has come yet. Now, what you have to understand is that in that world, in Israel, at the time of Jesus, many people were saying many things, and he was not the only one saying that we need to reform this tradition. We need to do something different. Because what was happening in the first century is that the Roman Empire had come in, had destroyed and in 60 after he died, destroyed the temple, and the Roman Empire really conquered Jerusalem, and there had to be a major transformation of what we were doing. We were bringing sacrifices to the temple. They destroyed the temple, so we needed to re-engage and understand Judaism differently. How Jesus did it was one way. Well, I'll tell you that we as a community changed that whole way of doing things. We no longer had sacrifices, but prayer replaced sacrifice. So Jesus had his own perspective on what was happening, and, well, you can say more or argue with me, but Jesus did not create Christianity.
I agree with that.
Okay, good. Actually, Paul and the disciples and other people after Jesus died, of course, right? Because his death and resurrection was the main point in creating Christianity. And so other people created the religion of Christianity. And then Constantine, in the 3rd century, made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire, of the state.
We just have 4 or 5 minutes left. You are such a terrific speaker, Marcy. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to take as many questions as you can. If you can keep the questions brief, that would be great.
And my answer's brief, too.
Well,
this section has
you
not
do what you need to do. Yeah, these guys.
I love it, but we have a question here. Yes, go for it.
Do you believe that Jesus committed sin then?
Do I believe Jesus committed sin? Why? What do you mean?
Because isn't it written in some prophecy that the Messiah will be the only one that has not committed sin?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I need a board here. But, okay, so we have two, when you call the Old Testament, it has the same books as what I call the Tanakh or the Torah, but they're in a different order because they were codified at different times. Oh, you are good. Wow. Okay, can everyone see?
How did you know she wanted to write something?
He just said.
I just said. Okay.
Oh, geez.
He was busy listening. Okay. All right, here we go. Here's a lesson. And I'm going to answer your question. It's just going to take a little bit, okay? I promise. So, in Judaism, we don't call it the Old Testament. Why? Because we don't believe in the New Testament. We understand and appreciate that you all do, but we don't. That's the difference. It's cool. It's good. But we don't believe in the New Testament. So we would never, ever call the Bible the Old Testament. So this is what we call it, and it's going to get to your question, I promise. We call the 5 books of Moses Torah. We call the prophets Nevi'im. You're getting some Hebrew lessons here. We call the writings like Psalms and the book of Ruth and Esther and all these other books at the end. We call that Ketuvim because that means writing. When we bring all of this together, we call it Tanakh. Good test question.
I'm writing it down.
How do Jews call what the Old Testament is believed in the Christian tradition? We call it Tanakh, which takes these 3 Hebrew words and makes an acronym out of them. Okay? So I'm not going to expect you, and nor should anyone, but this is taking the first Hebrew letters. These are the Hebrew letters. Tanakh. Okay? This is based in reality. Tanakh is based on the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text is the Hebrew text. What you call the Old Testament is based on the Septuagint text, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew text into English. So, they were codified at different times. They have the same books, but they're in a different order. Okay? And when you translate something, right, from one language to another, you're basically interpreting, aren't you? I mean, how many of you take a foreign language? Isn't that required here? Okay? What is it to take a poem and to translate it into English? What do you have to do? It's hard, isn't it? Have you ever tried it? Or even an essay. It's hard to do. So to take the Hebrew, to make it into Greek, to make it into English, the King James Bible that you might have in your pews, the Word, all of the interpretations that are in Christian pews are the Greek translation of the Hebrew. The book of Isaiah, that's what you're talking about. The book of Isaiah is translated in the Old Testament as foreshadowing Jesus. But in the Masoretic text, the words can mean something totally different. So we don't have that in our text. We don't have the foreshadowing of the Messiah in the same way. So Judaism believes the Messiah will be born and will never die. We don't know who the Messiah is. At every bris and at every naming, we call Elijah and we set a seat for Elijah because this child might be the Messiah. I say every Jewish mother thinks their children are messiahs. You won't get there yet, but okay. So here we have the reality. The Messiah will be born, never die. Different than what Jesus' story was. We don't know who the Messiah will be, but the Messiah will bring absolute peace. There's also a concept of messianic time. And the messianic time perspective is that actually we all will bring the Messiah by doing the good works. We all have to repair the world. That's really what tikkun olam means. It means for us to repair the world so that it's peaceful enough for the Messiah to come. So the idea that the Messiah has to be with no sin, that is not a Jewish concept. We haven't gotten there. That isn't really a view, but it is in the interpretation of Isaiah from the Septuagint text. Just like Bitulah, it's just like Mary being a virgin. The word Bitulah doesn't only mean virgin, it can be young woman. So it's an interesting thing. Okay, yes?
If you have to clarify or like piece up the world for the Messiah, what's the point of it? What's the point of the Messiah then?
The point of the Messiah is that we will make a place where someone who's so peaceful can live. Isn't that what we should be doing? Why should we wait for something to come and make it for us if we actually can piece the world together and make it possible? But there are two strands to it. And it's very different. I get it. It's so different than what you have grown up with.